Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. Docker Masterclass, episode 16 of 18. You hand a massive application error to a single AI model. It tries to hold the entire architecture, the logs, and the target syntax in its head all at once. Halfway through, it gets confused and hallucinates a fix for a completely unrelated file. One generic model trying to do everything leads to context overload. To solve complex problems reliably, you need building AI agent teams. The Docker agent framework lets you define specialized AI agents using a simple YAML configuration file. Instead of writing one monolithic system prompt, you break the workflow into discrete roles. You structure this as a hierarchy. There's a root agent that orchestrates the workflow, and multiple sub-agents that execute specific tasks. This isolates context. Each subagent only receives the information it needs for its specific job. Consider a debugging workflow. You need a team with two distinct roles. First, a bug investigator that analyzes stack traces. Second, a fixer that actually rewrites the broken code. You define this entire team composition in a file called docker-agent.yaml. You start by configuring the root agent at the top of the file. You give it a name, select an underlying language model, and provide system instructions. The root agent acts as the manager. Its primary responsibility is not to solve the problem directly, but to delegate work. You instruct the root agent to coordinate between the investigator and the fixer based on the inputs it receives. Next, you define the sub-agents within the same YAML file. You declare the bug investigator agent, you assign it a model that excels at reasoning and reading logs, you give it strict instructions to only read stack traces, identify the failing function, and output a brief explanation of why it failed. Then you declare the code fixer agent. You might assign it a model specifically optimized for code generation. Its instructions strictly tell it to take a failing function and output a corrected version. No log analysis, just code in and code out. When you run this team, the user only interacts with the root agent. You hand the root agent a massive dump of application logs. The root agent evaluates the request and reads the descriptions of its available subagents. It determines that the bug investigator is the right agent for the first step. The root agent passes the log dump down to the investigator. The investigator processes the noise, finds a null pointer exception in a specific function, and returns just that specific detail. The root agent takes that isolated piece of information and passes it over to the code fixer agent. The code fixer writes the patch and hands it back to the root manager, who then returns the final clean result to you. Here is the key insight. The code fixer never sees the massive stack trace. It only sees the exact function it needs to fix. You protect the context window of the coding model by filtering out the noise beforehand. By assigning narrow, specific instructions to individual subagents in the YAML file, you prevent the models from drifting off task. The root agent handles the sequence, and the subagents handle the execution. Structuring agents hierarchically forces you to treat AI like a microservices architecture, assigning strict boundaries to what any single model is allowed to care about. That is all for this one. Thanks for listening and keep building.